Well, you sure can't see me. Awesome. Good morning, folks. Thanks for joining me today. I'm really glad that you're here, and it is Friday, my favorite day of the week. Short day. Tomorrow, sleep-in day. So that's always nice. That's why I love Fridays. I like Mondays too, though. Mondays are great to come back after a nice restful weekend, work with you guys. We've got a bit of a shorter lesson today. It's going to be a quick one. Today's lesson is on how to set up for mass production. A lot of things we do, we often only build one or two of. But if you're ever looking to create a small business selling a product that you have to manufacture and create, then knowing how to efficiently set up your workspace to create or to be able to create lots of pieces in a short amount of time is a great thing to know. Being efficient, having a clean workspace, having systems in place so you can get the maximum amount of work done in a short period of time is something that's going to increase profit margins business-wise. If you have to mark out every piece of wood on this chair and cut every piece individually, it's going to take you a long time. But we have some tactics that we can do that are going to save time overall as far as cutting, measuring, drilling, things like that. So I'm going to talk to you guys about that today. Let's see. I just got a pop-up on my screen here. I'm just going to get rid of that. So the plan for today's lesson is show you some of the things that I've done to help myself create things like big stacks of seat slats in a hurry. So what I have here about 18 seat slats, and it didn't take me long to make these. I haven't drilled them yet. I'm going to save some drilling for today's video, but I'm going to talk you through the process. I'm going to walk you through the process. So with seat slats, we have a template here. And this template is just paper. We haven't put a back on it just because we don't really need to. It's very simple dimensions, and we can just transfer those to wood and cut those. So what we have here is seat slat N. It's got a hole on the end there, and the hole says clearance hole, countersink top. So we have to know what the top and the bottom is. That's fairly simple. We got this little logo right here. That means we are going to router the edges. We are going to make sure that that gets done. And it gives us a dimension right in the middle. It says 19 inches. So that's a great measurement to know. And then we have another measurement over here. 1 1/2 inches, which is awesome. And we got location of part D here. So the part D is going to be underneath this. This is going to be a seat slat that sits on top of everything else. So to build these in a timely fashion, what the material we're going to use is a 1x4. So we're going to take a 1x4 and we set our table saw to 1 1/2 inch cut width. Before we cut that piece of board, we need to inspect that board. We need to make sure that there is no foreign objects in it. Screws, nails, staples, rocks if it got drug on the ground, things like that. So we got to check that out. Once we've checked that board and then that board is nice and clean, we have set our table saw to 1 1/2 inch wide cut. We set our blade height, so it's one valley or gullet above the surface of the wood. I've got our splitter in place to separate the two pieces of wood as they exit the saw. Hi, John. Then what we're going to do is we will use a push stick and a fingerboard to make sure that our hands are out of the way when we are cutting that material. We're going to make sure the back area of the table saw is nice and clean so we can push that 8-foot board all the way through. Once we've done that, we have one board cut at 1 1/2 inches. Great. So we're going to collect the remaining piece of that board, which is going to be about 2 inches, because a 1x4 is actually only 3.5 inches wide. It's only 3/4 inches thick as well. Then what we're going to do is we're going to place that back in the saw. We're going to keep our saw width at 1 1/2 inches. We're going to adjust our fingerboard so that keeps the tension, the board tension against the fence. And I'm going to take you guys over there in a minute and show you this, but I'm just going to talk you through the process right now. So once we have that fingerboard back in place, the frame rate is bad. Okay. Well, is audio okay though? So hopefully the audio is good. Yeah, okay, audio is good. I've got a new hookup for my mic. Should be working pretty nicely. Nice thing I love about these mics is I can turn away from the camera. You should still be able to hear me, whereas the front-facing mics only pick up when you're speaking towards the microphone. So I've got front-facing mics on my laptop, and that's what I was picking up video with. So whenever I put my head down or turn away, you wouldn't get good audio quality, but I do have this little guy right here now and the proper input jack, and I should sound okay. So yeah, we were talking about table saw. So we get that fingerboard adjusted. We run our board through again, and we have another 1 1/2 inch board and about a 3/8 wide piece that we got to discard. So we're definitely using up that material to the best of our abilities. Once we've done that, we end up with strips like these guys. So 1 1/2 inches wide, 8 feet long. It's got a bit of a curve in it. It's not the best, but we're cutting this into shorter sections. So if there are curves and bends in the board, as long as they're not extreme, they will be fine. So what I've done is I have cut a few boards up, processed a few here. But once we have these boards, we need to cut them to length. So the step for that is we head over to the miter saw. And the other day, I talked with you about setting up stop blocks and how useful a stop block can be when trying to produce large amounts of material. So setting up that stop block at 19 inches, measuring from the blade, marking an edge on the table, then clamping it down, that is going to be what helps you keep the same length for every piece. And I've got 18 pieces here that took me only a couple minutes to cut. So that's great. That helps us do that type of cutting. With these, we need to drill 2 holes in each board. So what we could do is we could grab our combination square and our pencil, and we can mark out every single piece. That takes forever. We have 12 seat slats per chair. We have 24 holes because we have 2 holes per seat slat. So marking out 24 holes is going to take you a lot longer than it needs to if you're going to do it manually, 1 by 1 by 1. And also, as we start moving quicker, we get a little more complacent in our actions, which means, you know, we're more likely to make a mistake and less likely to care about that small mistake we make. So 1 through 5 might be great, 6 through 15 might be okay, and then 15 through 20 are just like, it's close enough, good. Drill a hole and you're done. I like to keep things very uniform. The key to get these chairs looking good is to have everything matching quite nicely. Hole depth, hole placement, spacing between all your seat slats that you're putting on. Those are all factors that I like to take into account. And I've got ways of doing this. I've built a couple of these before and I've made the mistakes. I've learned the tips and tricks on how to do this. So this is when I get to pass them to you guys and save you a whole bunch of pain and misery and help you guys create a great looking end product. So what I want to do is I am going to show you how I cut some of these pieces. So I'm going to take you guys over to the table saw. We're going to set that up and I'll run a 1x4 through there. I'll cut the strip. We'll move that strip over to the miter saw. We'll set the stop block. We'll cut it with the stop block. Once we're done there, we're going to go over to the drill press and I'm going to show you guys a little tool I made that really, really helps us out when it comes to production drilling. So that is something that I've made. I keep set aside here because I know we're going to cut a lot of seat slats. I know we need to drill a lot of seat slats. So I made a little tool that assists me. And once that tool is set up properly, I don't have to measure anything. No x-axis, no y-axis. My whole location is already set. The key is setting the first one properly and clamping it down tight so nothing moves. So let's get this process started. So we're gonna, before we get on the saw, sleeves gotta go. Well, they don't have to, but I like to take them away. Ring, jewelry, off that comes. So that's going on my wrist strap. I'm gonna leave my watch on just so I can keep good timing for the video and I'm not running it too long. These things, these are not good for table saws. So we're gonna get rid of these and we're gonna move over to safety glasses. All right, safety glasses are on. I've got some boards here, but I'm gonna collect a larger board and we're gonna cut that on the table saw and I'll take you over there in just a moment. Right there, that looks good. All right, so I've got my 1x4 board here. Fairly straight, fairly clean. Now I need to set up my table saw. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take everything off the table that I don't need, because I don't want any of this clutter to get in the way. So this guard can go back here. The miter gauge, I'm gonna set on this side here. This is a fingerboard I was telling you guys about. What happens is I will put this on the metal deck of the table saw behind me. It's got some magnets in it. These you can activate. It'll magnet down to the table, and these fingers right here will press against your wood and hold it there against the fence, which will be right here. That way you can slide your wood through and it keeps your fingers out of the way. You don't have to get those fingers near the blade. Just a really nice piece to have and a great safety device if you're working with one of these tools all the time. So I want to have my table saw set to 1 1/2 inches wide. So power is off. I'm going to take my tape measure and set this where I want it. There is a little measuring gauge on the side of the table, but I don't trust them. They are there, but definitely not something I would rely on. I like to set things myself, and that way I know 100% it's where I want it. So I just measure off the edge of the carbide tooth on the blade to this fence right here. Set that at 1 1/2 inches, and that is great. So the next step we want to do is we want to set our fingerboard in place to hold our board where we want it. And what I need to do for that is, it can be a little difficult sometimes, but I have to take this board, and if there's a shorter one around, you can use that to set this. But what I do is I set this up against the fence right there where I want it. I slide this fingerboard into place, make sure it holds fairly tight up against this fence, but not super tight. We don't want to bind anything. So I set one of the magnets, so that's in place. I snug this up just a little bit more and I set the second magnet. So this allows me to slide my material through here, and this will hold it up against this board without me having to have my fingers in there and have them, potentially near the blade. So that's great. We're going to take a look at this board. There was a staple on the end, not anymore. And there is nothing else major on this board that I need to make you guys aware of. So we're going to cut this board here. So let's make sure things are in a nice spot here. I don't want anything resting on top of this fence. This was up here and it vibrated, fell down into the blade. This isn't going to set off the saw stop. This is plastic, a little bit of metal. Doesn't have any electrical conductivity, not like our bodies. Our bodies give off low-level electrical signals, and that's what this sensor in here picks up, and that's why it stops the blade. So if this was to fall off of the fence into the blade, this is going to become a projectile, and it's going to be launching towards me at probably 100 miles an hour plus. That can create a bad day, and it's a Friday. I want to go into the weekend in one piece. I don't want to have to go see an emergency dentist to get a bunch of this fixed up here. Not something I'm really into. So I don't store anything on top of this fence for safety purposes, and it's just good practice not to get in the habit of doing that. Okay, we're going to cut this. What I am going to do is I am going to get a push board or a push stick to help me, because I don't want my fingers too close to that blade. So got a nice little push stick right here. Let's cut a board. Normally, I would have the dust collector on. In fact, I may turn it on. I just want to let this saw set up, and then I'm going to turn the dust collector on right now. So hopefully it's not too noisy. Hope you guys can hear it. But we're going to cut this board now. So the saw is set up and initialized. It does take a moment to turn on because it does have a sensor. It has to calibrate and get ready. But that sensor is part of the safety system that keeps these from getting shredded if you accidentally touch that blade somehow. So let's do some cutting. So right there, we've got one board cut. I'm going to wait till that saw blade stops moving like it has just there. I'm going to take my pieces out. So one piece we've cut. We're going to cut a second one now. For this, though, we're going to have to adjust the fingerboard. So we're going to adjust that back in because we just cut 2 inches off of our board. All right, that's where I like it. So let's get this cut. So here is some of the extra material we have. As you can see, it's quite thin. You can throw it out, or we can save it, because you never know, it might be useful for a little project. It's really up to you guys. But this is what I like about using a 1x4. Maximizes product usage. So we get the most we can out of that board with as little scrap as possible. So let's move on to the next step, guys. So we got that board. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna do a 180. I'm set you on the table saw. All right, so you guys can see that there. What we're gonna do, we're gonna set up that stop block and start cutting some material. So the key to doing production is to kind of have the space set up and leave all your tools set up as they were. So this table saw I know is set up, and I'm gonna leave it like that. So if I had to do a whole bunch of these, as I go along, I leave each tool set up, and then I come back and do a whole whack of pieces at once. So once I have the stop block here set up, I'm gonna leave it there. Then once I have the drill press set up, I'm gonna leave that set up. And then I'll come back and work through all my pieces and create a whole bunch of seat slats for you guys. So what I've done is I've measured, you guys probably couldn't see it because my body was in the way. I've measured off the blade, out here, 19 inches. I've used my square to make sure this is square. I'm gonna clamp this down the table, and that's what we're gonna use as our stop block. Got a clamp here, let's get that done. So we're gonna double check to make sure it hasn't moved. Looking pretty good at 19 inches. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna collect our material and we're gonna start cutting that up. Now there is something I could do to make this faster even. I could set a board on here a little differently so it's got a taller stop, and then I could stack my pieces on top of each other and cut a whole bunch at once if I would like. I don't lay them down side by side. So if you guys can see these is here, I don't lay them down side by side like that. If I was going to cut them, multiple cuts at a time, I would want them standing up. Or stacked on top of each other that way. But for today's video, I'm just showing you guys kind of the stop block and how that works and how quick we can cut this up without doing any measuring. One. So right there is 5 pieces from one board. And that's my leftovers, my scrap material. So when we talked about material usage earlier and how to be efficient with it, when that's your scrap, after cutting up a board, that's pretty awesome. And that's in the scrap bin now. So for this last one being so short, I kind of have to change my body position and change what hands I cut with, just so I'm not cross-cutting and potentially having that blade come up and cut me pretty bad. Once again, a little bit of scrap, that's it. All right, should be a little easier to hear me now. So now that we got 10 boards cut, we're gonna take these 10 boards over to the drill press. So I've got a nice little stack right here. We're taking the drill press, I'll take you with me, and do some cutting. Or some drilling, I guess, not cutting, we just did the cutting. So it's gonna take me a moment to get you guys set up the way I like. So I'm just gonna set you here for now. So let's see how this looks. Pretty sketchy setup I got running here, so hopefully it doesn't fall over. All right, you guys should be able to see that half decent. So what I'm gonna do is introduce a few things. In fact, I'm gonna take you guys back to the table for just a moment, and we will talk about what I've done to make this process faster. So we're going to work on drilling the seat slats for a minute here, but we need some measurements before we do that. We're going to refer back to the template for that. And the measurements I need are distance from the edge to the center, and from this top edge into that line there, center of the hole. So we're going to measure that quick. I've got the tape measure here. You can use a lot of measuring tools for this. This board is 1 1/2 inches wide. So 1.5 divided by 2 is 0.75, so 3/4 of an inch. And measuring it this way this is 3/8 of an inch. So nice and easy. So what I'm going to do is on this first one, this one's very important. This is your template for all your other pieces. We need to mark that out on one end. So I'm going to set this for 3/4 of an inch. And this is actually not set up the way I'd like it to be. So I'm going to spin that around. That one's not working. It's stuck. No time to waste on a Friday. New piece. 3/4 of an inch. See right there, 3/4 of an inch. Less than 1, more than half. And we're going to mark out that first line. There, this one's a little sharper. 3/4 is our center line. And 3/8 is our depth. So we're going to work with that. So that is very important. That is what's going to be the basis of all of our drilling. Now, another very important piece is a simple board. Scrap plywood that was thrown out. I made sure this corner was 90 degrees. I took 2 scraps of material here, countersunk them using the drill that we have on the drill press, and I drilled them into this board. I made sure this was 90 degrees, and this is important. So I'll show you how I use this to create our measurements. I think this is going to be a good way to see everything that's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how deep this drills firstly. And right there, we are set. If I drill all the way through, this bit could hit the table. And I don't want that. So I'm going to drop this table height 1/4 inch. That way, even if I drill all the way to the bottom, I cannot touch this table. So we're going to loosen up this hand wheel here. We're going to drop this table 1/4 inch. That's probably more than enough right there. And drop this down. It will not make contact with the top of the table. So that's what we want. Tighten this up. Make sure that table doesn't move anymore. Now, this is the important part. We're going to grab a couple clamps. Got a couple right here. We're going to take our board, we're going to place it in this jig. And we're going to make sure that it's tight against the back edge right here and against this front edge right here. That's very important. We are going to place the center point of this drill bit right in the middle of that cross we created. That right there is the location. That's where I want it to stay. So I'm gonna keep a little bit of tension on the drill bit, holding it down just by dropping it a bit using a hand wheel on the side. I'm gonna take one of my clamps, shake it open a little bit, turn it upside down. I'm gonna clamp it right here on the side of the table. Double check my measurements, I like that. So this hasn't moved. I'm gonna put a second clamp on it just to make sure that it hasn't moved or it won't move. We're gonna do that right here, right on the edge. So I've got 2 clamps there. You see the 2 clamps, see the jig I have set up. I got my piece, put it right in here. Now I can drill my hole. And every single time, as long as you slide the piece into the back corner of this jig, it's gonna be great. What I'll do is I will see if I can move the camera and give you guys a bit better idea of how this looks. So selfie mode here. So I have this piece on the jig right there in tight. If it's out like that, we're gonna fail. It's in tight, every measurement's gonna be the exact same. So that is how that is gonna work. What I'm gonna do is this drill press is a little closer. I wonder if I can get the right angle. You guys can see this happen. See how that looks. Not too bad. So we're gonna drill a couple. So we'll fire this drill press up, set this in here, double check exactly where I want it, which is great. And I'll reach over here and show you guys that. The only thing that we haven't changed on here or need to pay attention to is the depth we drill our holes. So there is a nice hole just like that. We can flip it, no marking required. Drill our next one. That's one done, just like that. Got a couple more boards here. And second one with no marking. Exact same as the first one. Looking great. So with this, folks, you can see that it may take a little bit to get us set up the way we want, but once we have tools like the table saw set up, the miter saw set up, one thing I didn't show you was routering. I'm going to show you that at a later date, but we would router these pieces generally before we drill them. We can do it after too, it doesn't really matter. That process is kind of interchangeable. Some people say one way, some people say the other. I'm going to play with both methods and see if one works better than the other. But as you can see, we can create a lot of these pieces in a hurry. And if we have 10 chairs in here and I have to make 120 seat slats, production is going to be key. We don't want to waste time with this. So now that things are set up, I can probably rip off 50 of these in a very short period of time. In fact, I do have a good stack here on the table and another 10 we just added to it. So I will work on these once the video is done today. We are going to wrap this up here. That's all I wanted to show you. And this is just another way to help you guys be as successful as possible in this classroom. Time is limited, space is limited, tool availability is limited, especially with the class sizes we have in here. So when we come in knowing what we're doing and how we're doing it, having that in our head already, a game plan for the day, is a great tool to help us achieve maximum efficiency in the shop. That is just something that's good practice anywhere. If you can demonstrate all of this stuff in a job, whether it be streamlining some other process to make things quicker and more efficient, moving things around so the workflow is better and you're not running from one side of the shop to the other for tools that you need continuously, that's great. You know, things like this wall behind me, all the common tools, as we can see. We have back saws, we have hammers, files, tri-squares, tape measures, chisels, file card, marking gauges on the far side, rulers up there as well, and the clamp wall behind me. This is all something that has been done to maximize efficiency in here. When we need tools, they're in one location. We know where to find them. We know where to return them to. And they're not inside of a cabinet. They're not inside of drawers all the time. There are some tools we do keep in drawers. It's because we just simply don't have that much wall space in here. But storing common tools like this on walls is a great way to increase efficiency. You don't have tape measures in a toolbox on one side of the room, chisels on the other side, hammers somewhere else. It's keeping everything together. So that is the basis of today's quiz, is streamlining a process, any process really, and making it more efficient, and telling me how you would do that, or finding an example of a process that could be more efficient and showing me how you would use your creativity to make this process better, quicker, faster, and you get more production. So I've got that assignment for you guys today in the class lesson. I'm going to open that up for you in just a minute. But yeah, I wanted to give you an overview of how I kind of do things in here a certain way to make maximize my time, because I only have one prep between classes. I film this video, I do the attendance, I open up your quiz, I upload the video to YouTube, then into class, and then I work on this stuff. So I have to, you know, do a lot of work for you guys here. It seems simple when you just see it on camera like this, but there is a lot of preparation and planning that goes into it. So to maximize efficiency, I've done things like this. Now you guys can show me an example of how you would maximize efficiency in one of your processes. Okay, thank you very much, guys. If you have not, please drop your name in the chat. That is my attendance, remember. And I'm going to turn off the video and the mic, and I will be here for about the next 15 minutes to help you guys out if you have any questions. So if you need help, shout at me, send me an email, whatever it takes, and we'll help you out. Awesome. Thank you, people. I really appreciate it, and have a great weekend.
Sir?
Yes.
See you on Monday, sir.
Sounds good. I'll see you Monday. Have a great day.
My birthday's tomorrow.
Your birthday? Well,
Tomorrow.
happy early birthday.
Thank you.
So,
I like the haircut, Mr. Scott. It looks good.
Haircut? Yeah, Fresh Cut Fridays.
Nice.